listening to the WrestleHavoc podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. We talk all that goes on in the realm of WWE and AEW every week. And now, here's your host, the one that will give you a reality check on pro wrestling, Flamin' Ricky DeReyes. This is the WrestleHavoc podcast.
What's up, everybody? It is Flamin' Ricky DeReyes right here on episode 22 of the WrestleHavoc podcast, of course, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the freaking referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. We have a lot of things to discuss right here on episode 22 of the show. Of course, we have an update and a source from Warner Bros Discovery via Fightful that talks about the negotiation process and possibly an extension with AEW. So we're going to be talking about the television deal negotiations with AEW Warner Bros Discovery. Will AEW also possibly go with a monthly pay-per-view format? We're also going to be talking about that as well. All In, which is going to be taking place next month in London at Wembley Stadium, is possibly not going to be available on streaming, and it looks like we are going to have to pay full price for that pay-per-view. Brian Pillman Jr. officially leaves AEW, and he's been officially spotted at the Performance Center, and it looks like he is on his way towards WWE. Eric Young leaves WWE because of the fact that he did not want to work with Vince McMahon. Ian Riccaboni signs a multi-year deal with AEW. AEW also sends a banned list to talent. It's not really a banned list of particular moves that they should do, but if anything, it's a list that really need to get final approval, and why I think this is a good thing for AEW. Bray Wyatt is still not cleared for a return. I'm going to be giving you guys my thoughts on Ring of Honor's Death Before Dishonor show. No, I will not be covering the show because it really holds nothing of importance whatsoever, and I will talk about why Ring of Honor has absolutely no direction whatsoever. Jeff Hardy is set to make his very first appearance on GCW in August in Detroit. I'm going to be talking about that as well, and a lot more right here on the WrestleHavoc podcast, of course, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the friggin' referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. If you guys had missed it, the AEW Collision review is up on the channel. I talk about FTR and Bullet Club Gold, consisting of Switchblade Jay White and Juice Robinson, delivering a tag team classic for roughly an hour in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. It was an absolutely phenomenal match. It was a 2 out of 3 falls match, and it definitely lived up to the hype. Not only that, of course, we also had the finals of the Owen Hart Cup tournament where Ricky Starks defeated CM Punk in very heelish fashion to win the Owen Hart Cup tournament. So we're going to be talking about that and much more on the Collision review. If you guys haven't checked out the AEW Collision review, the link will be in the description of this video below. But without any further ado, let's get on to episode 22 of the WrestleHavoc podcast. If you guys see any lag on this video, this is actually not the first time that I'm filming this particular episode. I actually filmed this episode last night, but unfortunately what happened was by the end of the video, there was a lot of lag going on. Not only that, there was a lot of technical difficulties in the video, which unfortunately led me to basically film, this review all over again. So that's why this review, well, not review, but this podcast is coming up a little bit late. And if you guys see any lag, bear with me. OBS is acting like a piece of shit right now. So hopefully we can get that, set in stone later on down the line. But for right now, OBS is just lagging like absolutely crazy. And it pisses me off sometimes, man. If you guys know, for any of you streamers out there, any of you podcasters out there that use OBS, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But without any further ado, let's talk about our first story. We're going to be talking about Warner Bros Discovery and AEW. According to Fightful Select, Warner Bros Discovery sources say that they're in deep extension talks with All Elite Wrestling. Fightful can confirm via a Warner Bros Discovery source that AEW has long been involved in television rights extension talks. Those that we've spoken to said that the conversations have been ongoing for months, and they personally believe an announcement could be made this summer or fall of a deal reached. WBD sources tell us that they've been very happy with AEW, color me shocked. They've been very happy with AEW, especially the flexibility they provided with adding and subtracting shows, providing different kinds of content, and working around preemptions and network changes. One of the provisions regarding AEW content and Warner Bros Discovery was that AEW content would be exclusive to the WBD brands, which signaled the end of AEW Dark and Dark Elevation on its YouTube channels. However, we've long heard that beyond the pay-per-view integration, WBD hadn't had much of an interest in ROH branding themselves, and it actually dates back when Sinclair owned Ring of Honor. We haven't heard if that has changed as of late. WBD does have plenty of say and influence over AEW programming, as we've seen in the past with crossovers and talent that are or aren't featured. However, we've been told, that being Fightful, that AEW has also been really flexible with overruns as well as other requests that Warner Bros. Discovery has made. Regarding the broadcast of AEW All In, we're told that has been actively discussed as part of these talks. The WBD source did confirm what we've heard in the past, that the deal would be quote-unquote a huge money increase for AEW by the way things are looking now. So, yeah, that was the initial report by Fightful Select. Overall, this is nothing but positive news. From what it looks like, Warner Bros. Discovery seems to be happy with AEW, and at the end of the day, that is the bottom line, and that is the most important thing. You have all these people on the internet still, thinking that they still live in 1998, thinking it's the fucking Monday Night Wars. The wrestling business is completely different right now. It's a content-driven business, and what companies want nowadays is content. And thankfully, AEW is one of those pieces of content that is not very expensive for Warner Bros. Discovery to put on both of their networks, that being TNT and TBS. And also with the addition of AEW Collision, what they're doing on a Saturday night, the ratings may not be the best, but when it comes to a show on a Saturday night, it is not bad whatsoever. And they even know this because they know all the competition that is there on a Saturday night. Collision is definitely facing an uphill battle, but that does not say that the show is bad, because the show is actually very, very, very good. But nonetheless, Warner Bros. Discovery is clearly happy with AEW. We do expect that there should be an extension being announced maybe in a couple of months down the line. That's what I actually expect. But hopefully we can definitely get an announcement hopefully down the line. AEW is absolutely going nowhere, and that is nothing but a positive for not only AEW, but for also Warner Bros. Discovery. Also, regarding this, AEW and Warner Bros. Discovery talks, we have a follow-up story by Fightful Select. And oh, look, I'm no longer lagging anymore. Finally, literally, this lagging has been a piece of shit all over, OBS. If you guys are watching the video, you guys know there was a lot of lag in the beginning. But let's continue on. WBD has been in favor of expanded pay-per-view schedule for AEW. So, this is according to Fightful Select once again. Warner Bros. Discovery sources confirmed to Fightful Select that one of the major proposals from their end to All Elite Wrestling as it relates to an extension is the subject of pay-per-view or PLE events. Specifically, a Warner Bros. Discovery source told Fightful that they mentioned the very likely possibility of significantly expanding the AEW pay-per-view schedule even to one a month. We're told that is something that Warner Bros. Discovery has wanted. We aren't sure if those would be a standalone or included in a max streaming deal, as WBD sources would not elaborate on that. AEW has already expanded their special event schedule, adding Forbidden Door last year and AEW All In this year. However, there have been no broadcast plans revealed as of yet. Nothing in the deal is finalized to our knowledge, and this could change, but the expanded schedule has been discussed. This caused a lot of discussion all over social media on whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing, with AEW adding a monthly pay-per-view schedule and adding more shows to their arsenal of already, a lot of shows. Because we started out by just having 4 shows in the beginning of AEW, then to 5. Now we're looking at 6 shows. We have Revolution, Double or Nothing, Forbidden Door, All In, All Out, and Full Gear. And it looks like we're probably going to be on the verge of getting monthly pay-per-views in the future down the line. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? There's positives to it. Again, if Warner Bros. Discovery wants more pay-per-views, then they're clearly going to get it, and it's more content for AEW to add in their already large library for a company that's only, a couple of years old. But, then this is the big but, and this is the big, I don't want to say selling point, but this is the big, really, I don't want to say negative, but Are you going to burn out your audience? That's the major question that we really need to ask ourselves. Are you going to burn out your audience by having 10 or 12 pay-per-views, throughout the entirety of the whole year? Because, again, a lot of people criticize WWE for having 12 pay-per-views a year, thinking that's already too much. WWE has lowered their pay-per-view schedule, and they're doing phenomenal work when it comes to their PLEs. Could we be seeing AEW going on a monthly pay-per-view format? Who knows? It could be beneficial, and it could not be beneficial. But the number one question I ask regarding this whole scenario is that if we ever get monthly pay-per-views by AEW, are they going to be available on Max? Are they going to be at a lower cost? Or are we going to have to pay $50 for each pay-per-view every single month? Because if that is the case, then that is a huge, huge, huge negative. Because if you think about it, roughly around the pay-per-view buy rate range for any AEW pay-per-view would be roughly around 120 to maybe 140,000 pay-per-view buys. So 120,000 to roughly around 140,000 pay-per-view buys. How much would be the pay-per-view buys if you bought like maybe a B-level pay-per-view? For example, if you did maybe a Road Rager pay-per-view, how much would the pay-per-view buy would be? Because clearly it's not going to be in that 100,000 range. It's probably going to be lower than that. But at the same time, it could be more revenue. Even though if it gets a lower number, you have more pay-per-views in the year, and you could still be doing those level of numbers with your big 4 or your big 5 pay-per-views like Revolutions, Double or Nothing, All Out, and Forbidden Door. It's an interesting topic. Some fans do not like the idea. Some fans love the idea. Again, it all depends on, how much will you invest your time in AEW, because AEW has a lot of fucking content, especially when it comes to the typical wrestling fan that not only watches WWE or AEW, but it could also be a fan that also watches Impact, and they got to pay for their pay-per-views, and also they are a subscriber to Impact Plus, a viewer of New Japan. A lot of these things take into consideration. The biggest question when it comes to this whole scenario is, will the audience be willing to spend the money for these particular pay-per-views? Speaking of pay-per-views, AEW All In, it looks like that is not going to be on a streaming deal with Max, and there is a reason behind that. They're in a report by Andrew Zarian of the Mat Men podcast. AEW All In, and I'm reading this from F4W Online. AEW All In will be a pay-per-view event, Andrew Zarian has confirmed. The promotion has not officially announced how fans will be able to see the show from Wembley Stadium on August 27th, but Zarian noted on Friday's Mat Men podcast that it will air on a Bleacher Report in the United States, similar to other AEW pay-per-views. Zarian and co-host Rich were discussing reports that AEW could move to a 12 pay-per-view per year schedule when Zarian made the following comments. And he states, and I quote, "Does AEW have enough of a dedicated fan base to generate 120,000 to 160,000 monthly pay-per-view buys?" Zarian asked. He states, "Does it make sense if it's on HBO? It makes way more sense if it's on a one-time fee," he continued to say. "Here's the problem with that. I spoke to somebody on that side of the technical side. HBO Max or Max is not prepared right now to do this. The infrastructure isn't built in. It's not that they're not working on it, because they are. We know that they are, because they want to do this with all sports as well. Bleacher Report is an outdated platform for this, so they are working on it. I don't know when it's going to be ready, but I don't have a time frame." Zarian also noted that there could be discussions about creating a combo package, including All Out the following weekend as well. Okay, so it looks like AEW All In is going to be a pay-per-view that you're going to have to shell money out for. It sucks that we're going to have to pay money for not only All In, but also All Out, because think about this. All Out is going to be taking place a week after All In. Those two shows are a week apart from one another. So it's going to be very demanding, and I think it's going to be a very bad move if AEW asks their core fan base and asks everybody that is investing time in all of these shows to pay $50 for not only one show, but a week later pay $50 for another show. And I feel like the people at AEW even know this, and I think that that'd be a really ludicrous idea to do. So the fact that Andrew Zarian is stating that, hey, there could be a combo pack that you could get both shows on one price, I think it's not a bad idea. Because, yeah, could you be cutting the revenue? Yeah, if you really think about it, you could be selling yourself short, but at the same time, both of these pay-per-views are a week apart from one another. And fans know this, and the company knows this. And look, the average wrestling fan is not really going to shell $50 for 2 straight shows back-to-back. It's just not going to happen. So a combo pack is definitely the best option for AEW All In and AEW All Out. But also, it's very disappointing that this show is not going to be on Max, because if you guys do not remember, when this show was first announced back in March, Tony Khan did state that this show was in celebration of not only 100 years of Wembley Stadium, but also 100 years of Warner Brothers. So a lot of people immediately thought, oh, wow, they're going to be putting this pay-per-view on Max, because it wasn't really advertised as a pay-per-view, if you really think about it. So it really sucks that this show is not going to be available on Max, but of course, there's a reason behind it. The infrastructure is not set yet, and when there's no infrastructure to really stream a show on a streaming service, then you got a problem. So, clearly, the people at Warner Bros Discovery are working on the infrastructure, as Andrew Zarian did state. And when will that streaming deal be announced? We have absolutely no idea. But from what it looks like right now, we're going to have to pay, honestly, maybe $30 to $40 for All In and an extra $40 for All Out, or it's probably going to be on a combo fee. We have absolutely no idea. The show's roughly around 7 to 6 weeks away, so we're going to have to wait and see what goes on. But again, Warner Brothers Discovery, the infrastructure on Max is not built yet. They're working on it, but it's not working as of right now. And clearly they want to do this with not only AEW, but they want to do this with all the other sports that they're in current deals with, and they have packages with, like the NHL and the NBA. So we're going to have to wait and see. This is going to be a very interesting development going on, but those are my thoughts on AEW All In and all the pay-per-views, and possibly having a monthly pay-per-view format with AEW. All right. In our next story, we are going to be talking about Brian Pillman Jr. If you guys do not know, Brian Pillman Jr. is no longer with AEW. Of course, Brian Pillman Jr. was a part of the Varsity Blondes along with Griff Garrison. They had a pretty good little tag team run with in AEW for a little while. Not really the best tag team. The only thing that I can remember from the Varsity Blondes was their match against the Young Bucks a couple of years ago. And this was still during the pandemic. It was a phenomenal match. But from what it looks like right now, Brian Pillman Jr. is no longer with the company, and he has been spotted at the WWE Performance Center. Brian Pillman has been at the WWE Performance Center, but is still a free agent as of right now. Fightful Select confirmed this past week that Brian Pillman's AEW deal expired in July after a 2-year full-time contract. The Wrestling Observer reported that Pillman was at the WWE Performance Center in Orlando, and we can confirm he was seen by numerous people there this week. When we asked WWE sources, they confirmed that as of now, Pillman has not been signed, but was working out at the facility. We're told that what he's doing resembles a bit of a quote-unquote get-to-know-you meeting, and that WWE had immediate interest when he became available. We're told that things regarding a lot of the people they bring in are being kept close to the vest, but that Pillman was in plain sight of many others at the PC. Fightful reached out to Pillman, who we haven't heard back about for that matter. What are my thoughts on Brian Pillman Jr. possibly going to the WWE? This is not a bad thing. It sucks that Brian Pillman Jr. really didn't get the justice he really deserved in AEW. And I feel like a lot of the reason as to why that was the case was because of the fact that AEW just has a bloated fucking roster. They really do. Looking back now, like, they signed a lot of fucking people last year. A lot of people. Not to say they're signing a lot of people now, but if you compare it to all the people that they're signing this year to compare to all the people that they signed last year, they signed a shit ton of people last year. And unfortunately, Brian Pillman Jr. was one of those people that unfortunately got lost in the shuffle, and he got shafted to dark. Because I believe his last few months in AEW was doing stuff with Brock Anderson and Arn Anderson on Dark, and then eventually Dark got canceled, and he really wasn't doing anything whatsoever. I mean, Brian Pillman Jr. has a legacy. He has a big legacy. Of course, his father back in the 90s, the loose cannon himself, Brian Pillman, was a big star. I generally feel like, Brian Pillman can be a big star, eventually down the line. And him going to WWE, look, it's a positive for his career. The one thing that we can take away from this is if you're a wrestler in the WWE that is like disgruntled and want to go to AEW, the number one thing that you really need to get in the back of your head is you're not guaranteed success in any promotion that you go to. You're not guaranteed success in AEW like a lot of people on the internet think. Look at Keith Lee. Keith Lee, even though he did win the tag team titles, what is really Keith Lee doing right now? He's not really doing anything as much. Andrade, for a short period of time, wasn't really doing anything. Malachi Black, the House of Black, wasn't really gaining a lot of focus before Collision. Even when they won the trios titles, nothing really was special. when it comes to the House of Black. Now, finally, it's kind of paying off in a way. But when it comes to AEW and people going to AEW, you're not guaranteed success going to AEW. And it's the same thing the other way around. You're not guaranteed success if you leave maybe AEW and go to the WWE. But in Brian Pillman Jr.'s case, him showing up at the PC, it looks like he's definitely on his way to WWE. And honestly, it's definitely the best fit for him. If he wants to elevate his career, going to WWE is not a bad thing whatsoever, like a lot of these fucking idiots think on the internet. Going to WWE is not a bad thing for your career. Look, it didn't work out for him in AEW. It absolutely sucks. It sucks that it didn't work out for him, but hopefully, if he gets signed by the WWE, which I genuinely think he will, hopefully he becomes successful in the future. I think he'd fit perfectly on NXT. He'd work well in NXT, and hopefully, if he gets successful in NXT, he can go up to the main roster and become successful over there. But as of right now, Brian Pillman Jr. is on his way towards the WWE. He was spotted at the Performance Center. From what it looks like right now, he's WWE bound, definitely. That is not to say he could possibly go to a promotion like Impact, because even though Impact is kind of like, in a way, a laughingstock when it comes to a lot of people on the internet, I mean, I tend to make jokes about Impact as well, but Impact is actually doing a lot of great things, from what I have seen. Impact is not a bad option for him either. Impact is honestly not a bad option for him either, but from what it looks like right now, he's definitely going to be on his way towards WWE. All right. In this short little story right here, Ian Riccaboni signed a multi-year deal with AEW. Ian Riccaboni has signed on the dotted line with All Elite Wrestling and Ring of Honor, according to Fightful Select. Fightful Select has confirmed that Ian Riccaboni has signed a multi-year contract with All Elite Wrestling, and he served as the ROH play-by-play announcer, and will be working several AEW Collision dates this summer. He appeared on the July 15th show and received heavily praise both backstage and from fans for his performance. Riccaboni was one of the last original Ring of Honor contracts to last through the acquisition and was brought aboard. We're told that Ian Riccaboni was actually originally offered the role to do AEW Collision full-time, but cited prioritizing family as the reason he didn't want to do it full-time. And he recommended Kevin Kelly for the spot. Ian Riccaboni will call the next 4 episodes of Collision and will also spell both Kevin Kelly and Excalibur when they need time off. He's primarily been calling ROH shows remotely. Overall thoughts on this? Great for Ian Riccaboni. I think he's phenomenal. At first, when I first listened to Ian Riccaboni, I was very familiar with Ian Riccaboni because he did commentate for Ring of Honor before Tony Khan did purchase the promotion. Ian Riccaboni is great. I believe he was on commentary for the original All In as well, along with Excalibur. And I believe Don Callis as well. And, he's great at what he does. If you're a first-time listener of Ian Riccaboni, it's going to take some time for him to get used to it, but really what makes Ian Riccaboni shine, in my opinion, is the people that he is paired with and that he has good chemistry with. For example, Caprice Coleman. I think Caprice Coleman elevates Ian Riccaboni even further. The level of intensity in a match elevates the performance of Ian Riccaboni even further, along with Caprice Coleman. The work that he did this past Saturday on AEW Collision with Nigel McGuinness, I thought that was genuinely phenomenal as well. So I think, him being a part of AEW Collision is great. He's not going to be there full time because I believe right now Kevin Kelly is doing stuff for the G1 down in Japan for New Japan. So that's why Ian Riccaboni is going to be a part of AEW Collision for the next 4 weeks. But overall, nothing but positive. Congratulations to Ian Riccaboni. I think he'll do great things, and he looks like he's going to be commentating for AEW Collision for the next 4 weeks. So congratulations on Ian Riccaboni for officially being All Elite. In our next story, we got Eric Young. Yes, Mr. Eric Young. Remember? He was a part of Team Canada, and he was also a former TNA World Heavyweight Champion, and this is not Eric Young's fault, because Eric Young is fantastic at what he does, but they copied Daniel Bryan and all that stuff. Let's be honest with ourselves. But Eric Young has officially left WWE. You guys may not know that, but he was actually under contract with the WWE. He was actually signed in November of 2022 when Triple H was running the creative ends of WWE. According to Fightful Select, there's been much speculation about Eric Young's status, and some of it's coming a lot clearer. Young is rumored to appear at Impact Wrestling's Slammiversary, but had been under a WWE contract since last year after leaving Impact Wrestling before. Last fall, he was approached by Triple H about returning to WWE in an in-ring only capacity and signed with the company at the start of November of 2022. However, he would ask for his release just a few months later. Fightful Select confirmed that Young asked for his release in April of 2023, and it was granted and finished out his 90-day no-compete clause just last week. We're told by WWE sources that this request for his release was right after the announcement of the Endeavor deal with the WWE, and this wasn't a coincidence. Eric Young didn't want to work with Vince McMahon after the Endeavor deal was announced, and it was evident that McMahon was back in the fold in an official capacity. WWE sources confirmed to Fightful that Young had cited moral and creative and personal reasons as to why he didn't want to work with Vince McMahon. So far, he's the only talent we've confirmed asked for his release due to McMahon's return. And there are some creative plans for Eric Young scheduled after WrestleMania that we've also learned about that we were working to confirm. We've reached out to Eric Young, but haven't heard back. We've heard that he's in town for tonight's Impact Wrestling Slammiversary show. So it looks like Eric Young has left WWE because he didn't want to work with Vince McMahon. That's really the nature of the beast right there. He did not want to work with Vince McMahon. Unfortunately, that is the God's honest truth that is going on in the realm of WWE right now. Vince McMahon is definitely back in power, and is he running fully on creative? No, he isn't. But he's definitely in the weeds, as Vince McMahon stated when the company first announced the Endeavor deal. Eric Young, he fits perfectly on Impact. I mean, he has a history over in Impact Wrestling, so honestly, it's not really a bad thing. But him going back to Impact Wrestling, it really does suck for Eric Young because he did expect that Triple H was fully in charge. And then once the Endeavor deal eventually happened, of course, all shit broke loose and Vince McMahon was back and Eric Young wanted no part of it. Because if you really think about it, Eric Young was a part of NXT. And he was a part of Sanity, and when Sanity got called up to the main roster, they got fucked in the ass and got buried. And you know what happened later on. So it really does suck for Eric Young, but it is what it is, and hopefully, he'll find success somewhere else, and he'll go back to Impact and do the things that he was doing before he returned to WWE. All right, in our next story, we are going to be talking about the banned list. Yes, there is a banned list for AEW, and there's a list of moves and things that are banned from AEW that were sent to talent, and they require clearance. This is according to Fightful Select. There could be some major changes to coming to the in-ring All Elite Wrestling product very soon. Fightful has learned of a document that was sent out within the company recently that outlined some of the changes that the company was planning to make in regards to performer and fan safety. It's important to note that while multiple people in the company confirmed that the document was legitimate, there are numerous talents who said that they hadn't seen it as of yet. There were protocols developed by the AEW medical team, coaches, and referees to help protect talent, staff, crew, and fans. The document said that while there's always risk in pro wrestling, they want to minimize the risk without compromising the quality of the talent's performances and ability to be creative. Specifically, a document was sent out that outright banned unprotected chair shots to the head, shots to the back of the head, buckle bombs, and blind moves backwards into the turnbuckle, fencing responses like unnatural position of arms following a concussion, seizure cells like we saw in the Bryan Danielson and Okada match, spitting, bleeding in the crowd, weapons, projectiles in the crowd, taking drinks or food from guests in the crowd, or physical contact with the crowd. We're told that nothing with blood on it should be thrown into the crowd. This will affect the offense of a few wrestlers, but largely buckle bombs and attacks seem to be only the ones that are not allowed. However, there have been several instances of bleeding wrestlers in the crowd, and MJF has been known for his physical interaction with fans, and Bryan Danielson for seizure-esque cells. Later on, this report explains that the document said that providing the necessary parties with notice to plan quote-unquote creative stunts and spots is helpful that way, that they can plan for them to be done as safely as possible. Talents were encouraged to speak to coaches, talent relations, medical team, or legal as early as possible for things that would require such planning. One talent that Fightful spoke to said that they believe that this is a good move and will help streamline the show and avoid repeat spots and moves in general, and make sure of the athletic spots that talent are capable of. It is also expected to help instill some authority to the coaches and help production prepare for spots. We'll be asking more talent about their reactions as they become more aware of it, but mostly we've heard from agreed it with was necessarily tightening of the screws as the company grows. So yeah, what What are my thoughts on this ban list, or quote-unquote ban list? Moves are not banned, officially banned from AEW to talent needs just final approval. What are my thoughts on this? I think the internet, with their complaining about this whole protocol being announced, it's fucking way overblown. It's not a scenario of AEW outright banning, tope suicidas or buckle bombs or any those types of moves from any of that nature. But I will say, a common criticism that I see with AEW a lot is the fact that we see a lot of the same spots in almost every single match. AEW is fantastic for, having different styles of wrestling. They got lucha libre, they got strong style, they got the British style, they got any type of style of professional wrestling that you could ever dream of. They got it all in AEW, right? And that is a good thing. But, in almost every match you would see a tope suicida. In any match. It could be a match on a random rampage. You see a fucking guy bleeding for no fucking reason. Case in point, and I mentioned this last week, the Preston Vance and Dralistico versus Jungle Hook match. It was a tornado tag match. Granted, it was a tornado tag match, but let's be honest, it was a match that I could give less of a shit of. And you had freaking Preston Vance just blade like absolute crazy. Like, he just was bleeding crazy, man. Like, the blood usage in AEW is one big issue. I genuinely believe that. It's like almost every fucking week we see blood in matches. Trust me, I love high spots. I love blood in matches. But when is enough enough? This definitely ensures the safety of the wrestlers. And at the end of the day, safety comes first when it comes to professional wrestling in any type of promotion that you are in. In any promotion that you are affiliated with safety comes 100% first. This is nothing but a positive. If you are thinking that this is a negative, clearly you are the problem and do not care about the safety of the performers wrestling in that ring. This is nothing but a positive. Look, the Tiger Driver 91 spot, it looked absolutely brutal. But the reason why that spot was so special in the match was because of the fact that it wasn't even done on AEW before, as far as I'm concerned. We see tope suicidas constantly. We see spots on the apron constantly. We see buckle bombs constantly. Roosh fucking furiously sends wrestlers on the fucking barricade like crazy. Granted, that's a signature Roosh thing, but still. Bleeding is like a constant thing on AEW TV almost every freaking week. It could be a random match on Rampage that nobody gives a shit about and not a lot of people will watch, and a wrestler would still fucking bleed like crazy. The blood usage in AEW is absolutely ridiculous. Nobody should be complaining about this whatsoever. Again, this is a step in the right direction, and it ensures that the producers, management, and the medical staff are fully on top of the wrestlers, man. The narratives that I see on the internet about how badly the AEW medical staff are is fucking ridiculous. We had Bryan Danielson, of all people, go on the Double or Nothing or Forbidden Door Media Scrum, just absolutely praising the AEW medical staff. So the fact that people are creating narratives about how Tony Khan's just a mark and he doesn't know what he's doing and the medical staff just doesn't really care about the safety of the wrestlers is complete fucking bullshit. This whole banned list, quote unquote, proves that they actually care for the wrestlers. Safety first is the most important thing. If you're any type of promotion, whether a major promotion or an independent promotion, safety comes 100% first, other than anything else. Safety comes first always. This is nothing but a positive, and nobody should be complaining about how this is going to ruin AEW and this is going to be a bad thing whatsoever. This is going to make matches more sense, and you're not going to see a lot of the same matches over and over and over again on AEW at the end of the day. So stop bitching about this whole ban list. It's not that big of a deal. If anything, this is a good thing happening in the realm of AEW. All right. So we're going to be continuing on right here on the episode 22 of the WrestleHavoc podcast. Of course, we got a couple of topics left. Of course, we're going to be talking about Ring of Honor Death Before Dishonor. Did you guys know that there's a Ring of Honor pay-per-view, this coming Friday? Neither did I. I completely freaking forgot that we had a Ring of Honor pay-per-view. You want to know why people forget that there was a Ring of Honor pay-per-view this Friday? It's because there's barely any build for that fucking show. Nobody gives a single shit about Ring of Honor at this point, with all due respect. But we got Ring of Honor, Death Before Dishonor. And as I believe there were 2 matches announced recently, I believe like yesterday or 2 days ago. But before that, there was literally only 1 match announced. And it was Claudio Castagnoli defending the Ring of Honor World Championship against Mark Briscoe. And that match is not going to be happening. Well, Claudio's still going to be defending his title, but Mark Briscoe went out with an injury. So he's not going to be wrestling Claudio on the pay-per-view. But this is the card as follows. We only have 3 matches on this show. We got, of course, Claudio Castagnoli versus a mystery opponent because we have no idea who the replacement for Mark Briscoe is going to be. We got Samoa Joe defending his ROH World TV title against the winner of Dalton Castle versus Shane Taylor, which I believe now it's going to be Shane Taylor. And we got the Ring of Honor Pure Championship with Kazuchika Shibata defending his title against Daniel Garcia. The last 2 matches were announced maybe a couple of days ago. Claudio Castagnoli versus Mark Briscoe was announced maybe last week or 2 weeks ago. That is the problem. First off, Ring of Honor, I'm not watching the weekly show, so I don't know what's going on there. I tried to cover the show right here on the WrestleHavoc podcast. I stopped after the 2nd episode. The reason why is because if you watch the Ring of Honor show, and for those of you guys that love story, I love story in my wrestling, it's literally just AEW dark. It's fucking match after match after match after match after match after match after match. They'd maybe put a video package or like a backstage interview in between those matches, but primarily more of the time it's match after match after match after match. There'd be some weeks where Tony Khan would just go fucking crazy and fucking book like 18 matches on one Ring of Honor show. Don't believe me? Look it up. So I knew for a fact, I'm like, yeah, there's no fucking way I'm going to be covering Ring of Honor. It's ridiculous. It's basically covering AEW Dark. Now, I'm not going to go out on a limb and say he should shut down the promotion. I think it's ludicrous. I think he has all the right intentions when he's running Ring of Honor. If you really think about it, you know, he's keeping jobs for a lot of wrestlers and you're bringing in wrestlers that you're not utilizing in AEW over to Ring of Honor. Okay, great. But again, the number one question that I ask, especially when it regards to Death Before Dishonor, is where the fuck is, number one, the build, and where is the direction for Ring of Honor? Where do you want Ring of Honor to be maybe in a year or maybe next year down the line? That is the number one problem with Ring of Honor. There's no direction whatsoever. You expect people to pay $10 a month and for a streaming service that doesn't really appeal to a mass audience like Honor Club. And we all knew that this was not Tony Khan's, this was not Tony Khan's first decision. He wanted this shit to be on TV, and Warner Bros Discovery was like, fuck that. When they started adding Ring of Honor on AEW television every fucking week, I was one of those people that actually defended it because if you really think about it from a business sense, it made sense. But now, looking back at it, what was really the whole point of adding Ring of Honor on AEW television? I could even make the argument that they introduced Ring of Honor very poorly on television because it wasn't a scenario where they would air video packages of what Ring of Honor was to introduce people that are watching AEW who don't know what Ring of Honor is. Instead, what they did was they just flat out brought in the champions like who at the time were like Jonathan Gresham and all those other people. They literally just brought in those wrestlers and have them defend their titles without any explanation whatsoever on AEW TV. That is exactly what it was. Chris Jericho winning the Ring of Honor World Championship. If you look back at that now, that title reign was rendered absolutely useless. What is the point of Ring of Honor now? I get he has all the right intentions of keeping Ring of Honor alive. But if you look at this pay-per-view card, do you honestly expect people to watch this pay-per-view? What are the pay-per-view buys are going to look? What are the pay-per-view buys for Death Before Dishonor are going to look like when the show actually happens? As far as I'm concerned, the ticket sales are absolutely dog shit. I was planning on going to this show because, of course, I am from New Jersey, but it looks like, there's only 3 matches announced. I'm not going to this show. Absolutely not. I am not going to this show whatsoever. Am I going to be covering this show right here on the WrestleHavoc podcast? No, I'm not. I'm going to be giving you guys my thoughts on it, brief thoughts on it. I will be watching the show, but I will not be covering the show. There's just no reason for me to cover the show, and I hate to say that because I genuinely believe the Ring of Honor pay-per-views are phenomenal. But still, the biggest problem with Ring of Honor is that there's absolutely no direction whatsoever for the brand. Where do you want Ring of Honor to be a year from now? Because as far as I'm concerned, it's going to be in the same place that it already is right now. When Tony Khan bought Ring of Honor, let's be honest, was a dead brand. Nobody was watching Ring of Honor when Tony Khan bought the promotion. Nobody. This was the chance for Tony Khan to really rectify Ring of Honor and really grow it to what it could be and should be. But instead, it's kind of a shell of its former self at this point. You have people even say that Impact is more Ring of Honor than Ring of Honor itself, which is fucking crazy to think. People that watched Ring of Honor now watch Impact. I'm possibly thinking about watching Impact because I hear a lot of good shit is happening over there. And I never thought I'd say that. Never thought I'd say that. Ring of Honor, I'm not going to sit here and say, look, they should shut it down, because they should not shut down. Absolutely not. But, bro, have some sort of direction when it comes to Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor on Honor Club should not be a 2-hour or a 3-hour show. It should be strictly a 1-hour show, period. That's what it should be. But instead, they're going to overload it with fucking matches that mean nothing in the long run. The talent is phenomenal. The talent is great. But again, where's the direction? That's the biggest problem. No direction whatsoever. And Death Before Dishonor, barely any build whatsoever. Nobody gives a shit about Death Before Dishonor. You probably do not know that there is a Ring of Honor pay-per-view happening this Friday. So, I'm sorry, but Ring of Honor, look, nobody gives a shit about Ring of Honor. You know, I could easily sit here and say, you know, Ring of Honor is great and all that stuff, but I'd be bullshitting you. I'd be bullshitting you at the end of the day. Ring of Honor, nobody gives a single fuck about it at the end of the day. So those are my thoughts on Death Before Dishonor. Yeah. Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy is set to make his GCW debut in August. He is, I'm reading this from F4W Online. He will be making his GCW debut this August, and the promotion announced Tuesday that Hardy will appear at My Name Is in Detroit on Friday, August 4th. Following the event, he will perform a live concert at the same venue. Separate admission is required. Overall thoughts, I remember when they first announced this, I tweeted, "What?" in all caps, and I was pretty much shocked. I mean, GCW bringing in Jeff Hardy could be a positive for GCW, you know, not bad. But again, we're talking about Jeff Hardy here, and we're talking about GCW. GCW is the Wild, Wild, Wild West. I don't even want to call it the Wild, Wild, Wild West because GCW is based in New Jersey. And it's the Wild, Wild East, if you really think about it. If you're talking about East Coast and West Coast, GCW is the Wild fucking East. And they do a lot of crazy shit over there. Now, thankfully, Jeff Hardy is not going to be wrestling, which is great. But Jeff Hardy, a guy like Jeff Hardy, you know, who has a record and, you know, is known to get into a little bit of trouble like he did last year, going to a show like GCW kind of did have me worried, but we're going to have to wait and see what happens. Am I going to tune in? Maybe. I mean, I'm a casual GCW fan. I consider myself a GCW fan because I do go to some of the shows at the Showboat. They're fun shows. Don't get me wrong. They're fun shows, but the shit that they do, man, is fucking crazy. And with Jeff Hardy showing up on the show, hopefully he won't do anything crazy. He's not going to be wrestling, but again, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. GCW, they don't give a fuck. They would do whatever the fuck they want. But that is not to say that that's a bad thing, but whatever. It looks like GCW is going to be bringing in Jeff Hardy for that particular show in August. All right, and finally, our final story, we are going to be talking about Bray Wyatt. Yes, Bray Wyatt is in the news, and it looks like Bray Wyatt is still not cleared to return. According to Fightful Select, Bray Wyatt isn't set for a return. Bray Wyatt has been sidelined since late February, and he is out of action with an illness that prevented him from getting cleared for an in-ring action return. When Fightful Select inquired about Wyatt's status, WWE higher-up confirmed to Fightful that Wyatt is still sidelined and not cleared for action. We're told that he was still awaiting clearance and hopeful for a return. Whether that occurs, Wyatt was involved in a feud with Bobby Lashley, and they were planned for a WrestleMania match, and also scheduled to be involved when Wyatt, in some capacity, where Bo Dallas / Uncle Howdy, who has been off television since, and Alexa Bliss, who is out for all of 2023 on maternity leave. In the months that have followed, we have not heard any significant creative plans due to the unpredictable nature of getting Wyatt cleared. So yeah, that is the latest on Bray Wyatt. Honestly, what's crazy is that when Bray Wyatt first made his return last year at Extreme Rules, the build-up to his return was fucking phenomenal. You know, they were marketing, I don't want to say marketing, but they were promoting the QR codes, the White Rabbit. They were literally, during commercial break, you know, they would dim down the lights and they'd play the White Rabbit song. It was freaking awesome. And the QR codes were phenomenal. And then once the return happened, everybody was shocked. But then when they brought in Bray Wyatt, of course, Bray Wyatt was kind of himself. They were pretty good promos. But then they started to do the same thing over and over and over again, and there was really no follow-up to what they were doing with Bray Wyatt. And that was where it really led to where we are now. And, of course, we had the pitch black match with LA Knight, which at the end of the day, looking back at it, I thought, I didn't praise it, but I said, look, it was different. It was a different type of match. Maybe if they do it again, they could do it better. Looking back at that match was pretty much dog shit because look where Bray Wyatt is now. Nobody is talking about Bray Wyatt, and that really does suck because, again, Bray Wyatt is one of the most creative minds in all of wrestling, and if you take Bray Wyatt's creative mind and if you mix it with a lot of the creative minds in the WWE, at the end of the day, you just create chaos. The philosophy of Bray Wyatt is different than the philosophy of WWE. That is the best way I can explain it to you. And unfortunately, it just didn't work out for Bray Wyatt. Do I think he's going to be returning in some way, shape, or form? Yes. But the number one thing that I have to say about that matter is the fact that there's going to be no impact like the impact that he did back in Extreme Rules last October. So, unfortunately, we're not going to be getting, the White Rabbit. We probably will, but again, it's not going to be in the same, excitement or in the same vein as we got it, in the beginning. Because in the beginning, everybody was super excited. Everybody was super excited. Now, we're all just like, oh, it's Bray Wyatt. Who cares? Doesn't matter. But it really does suck for Bray Wyatt because Bray Wyatt is super talented at what he does. And it sucks that he's in this position, but hopefully he gets better. Hopefully this so-called illness that he has, he can get through it, and hopefully he can come back. He can come back at full force, and hopefully they'll do something with Bray Wyatt at the end of the day because, unfortunately, this return did not work out for the better for Bray Wyatt. All right, that was episode 22 of the WrestleHavoc podcast. We definitely talked about a lot of things right here on the show. This was my second time filming this review. In the beginning, it was lagging a little bit, but thankfully, everything is all set in stone. So if there was any technical difficulties on the show, bear with me, please. But nonetheless, overall, there was a lot of topics that we definitely talked about right here on episode 22 of the WrestleHavoc podcast. Of course, we have Monday Night Raw tonight. I'm not really that excited for Raw, but we're going to have to wait and see what happens. We got Dynamite on Wednesday. Of course, we got the Dynamite Blood and Guts match. That's going to be absolutely insane. We got SmackDown on Friday. Collision. I'm actually going to be attending Collision. I'm still thinking about whether or not I should do a vlog or not to upload it on the channel. I have absolutely no idea. But I will definitely show you guys footage of, of my initial reactions being at the show, showing you guys footage of me being at the show, hopefully on YouTube Shorts. So I will definitely do that as well. But nonetheless, this week should be a pretty cool week for pro wrestling as well. Of course, we are on the road to SummerSlam, so I'm definitely excited about that. But nonetheless, that was it for everything for episode 22 of the WrestleHavoc podcast. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications and be on the lookout for more videos right here on the WrestleHavoc podcast in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the freaking referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. And as always, it is Flamin' Ricky DeRays, signing out. I'll see you guys later. Peace.